Welcome back, New World Fantasy Football. Got a special episode for you today. I am going to be ranking my top 10 favorite landing spots for players in this upcoming draft. And I try to have it based in reality somewhat, where it's not just me picking what team should be on. Actually, it might be a possibility in this upcoming draft. Never know. People take these mock drafts sometimes as gospel come, February all the way through March. And then, of course, going into April, towards the end of April. And then the draft happens and none of it really mattered. But you know what? It makes for good content. So I'm just saying these are my favorite fits for fantasy relevant players. Not in any particular order or draft spot, but here we go. I'm going to get right into it. So, my number one favorite spot for the player named Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia, the Go Dogs. One of the most electric playmakers in this draft. My notes on Mr. Brock Bowers, got him right here, is playmaker, very tough, fights through contact. Really, his only weakness really is he's undersized somewhat. But, I feel like that's happening across the board with playmakers, where the NFL is really starting to lean towards favoring speed and explosiveness, playmaking ability, than necessarily just size and prototypical size. It feels like that's actually not – it's still important because you still got to block as a tight end, most tight ends. But if you get an elite playmaker, that is just a matchup nightmare in the middle of the field. Even outside, some tight ends can, go all over the formation. That's huge. And I think Brock Bowers is a guy like that. And the team that I'm picking for him is the Chargers. I think it's probably starting to become a pretty popular pick. But listen, the Chargers, they've kind of had to get by with guys like Gerald Everett, who's not a bad player. Also very undersized to play tight end. Stone Smart, not really gonna anybody to be super excited about. Who else do they have? Dylan, is it? I don't even know his name. Donald or Dylan? I think it's Donald Parham. Yeah, Donald Parham. Really tall guy. Had a little run this past year, where he was catching some touchdowns. But, Brock Bowers would automatically, you plug him right into that offense, and he's going to make things happen. Justin Herbert's going to, I think, would target him early and often. And, he's a potential of being a top 5 tight end in fantasy, like right off the bat. Guys like Sam Laporta don't grow on trees, where their first year they're going to just be super successful and like literally be the tight end 1 in fantasy. Like, okay, I don't expect that from Brock Bowers, but you put him in an offense where he would be necessary. Mike Williams is often hurt, got hurt this past year. Keenan Allen is getting younger, had a great year, but had a lot of injuries in his career. Quentin Johnston hasn't worked out as a rookie. We'll see. They're going to give him another shot. They're going to let him try to develop. I mean, he was a first-round pick for them. They're not going to give up on him that quick. But I think another really solid weapon, for the Chargers, makes a lot of sense. As much as they need to protect Justin Herbert, I think they get a chance to make to grab a playmaker there. The level of Brock Bowers, that's probably going to be the pick. But I'm not trying to predict it. Just I think a good fit and a realistic fit. So, number 2, one that I really hope happens, assuming my G-men can't move up to get a quarterback, which I don't think is going to end up happening, because I don't think Chicago is going to pass up on the chance to draft Caleb Williams. I think Ryan Poles, he passed up on quarterbacks last year. And Justin Fields is just he's inconsistent. He has ups and downs, but I don't want to talk about Justin Fields right now. So why am I saying all that? Because if this consensus holds true, which over 2 months away from the draft as I'm recording this, who knows how that's going to change. Still need the combine. Whatever you're going to learn from that, I don't know. But let's just say it goes quarterback, Marvin Harrison Jr., who I'm not even going to put on this list because my favorite fit for Marvin Harrison is I don't care what team. I want him on my fantasy teams, whatever. So I didn't even bother putting him on this list. So he's excluded. And the top 3 quarterbacks excluded. But let me get to my freaking point here. Sixth overall for the Giants, Malik Nabers would be an absolute dream. My notes on him right here. True deep threat, great yards after the catch. Ball tracking is great. Just needs technical refinement, which is like, okay, if he's a coachable guy, he'll figure that out pretty quick. And if it's really that bad, half a season, and he's going to start figuring that out. And I think he could be somebody that the Giants have really needed for a long time. After Odell Beckham, it has been a struggle to have true playmakers. Your running back can't be your sole playmaker all the time. That leads to a ton of injuries, and it can become one-dimensional, very predictable. That's not what you want. You need somebody on the outside to just be able to punish a defense. And I think Malik Nabers could be that for the Giants. Quarterback aside, whatever you think about what's going on with Daniel Jones or whoever else they bring in, or, of course, Tommy DeVito, who doesn't seem like he's going to really get much playing time next year, but you never know. Yeah. My pro comp that I have for Malik Nabers is actually DJ Moore. I love the yards after the catch, the smooth route running, the explosiveness. I think he's going to be really awesome. I think the NFL, they know that. It wouldn't be, the second rated, maybe third if you prefer a guy like Rome Odunze for you. But, yeah, I think he's going to be a real stud. And Marvin Harrison Jr. being Malik Nabers would be the number 1 wide receiver in a lot of draft classes. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is, like, truly the type of prospect that only comes around like once every 5 or 10 years. So, yeah. So, and by the way, my pro comp for Brock Bowers, I had Trey McBride because a little bit undersized, but he's a good playmaker and he's tough and he can make yards off the catch himself. So, moving forward to my number 3 favorite fit in this upcoming NFL draft. I have got Mr. When in Rome Odunze. When in Rome, when in Jersey, it's all love. And the other New York, New Jersey team taking Rome Odunze, the New York Jets. I would love this fit because I feel like Rome Odunze is probably the most pro-ready receiver coming out. Maybe you could say if you want to say Marvin Harrison Jr. is more pro-ready, I'm not going to fight you on that. But I think he's going to be able to step right into an NFL offense and have no problem being a wide receiver 2 right off the bat, which means you got Garrett Wilson, of course. You got Rome Odunze on the other side, who they had before last year. Randall Cobb was like pretty much a ghost, which, it's to be expected. He didn't have Aaron Rodgers, and, he's really up there in age. He's not the same player he was back in like 2016. So Rome Odunze, 6'3", 215, fluid mover at his size, very good route runner. I think he's pro ready. He's not super explosive, but that's okay. He doesn't necessarily have to be. I have my pro comp here as Mike Evans. He's a little smaller than Mike Evans. Mike Evans is like 6'5", 6'3". So, but the way he plays reminds me a lot of Mike Evans, and I think he's just going to be really rock solid. Now you get Aaron Rodgers back. He's got his boy Garrett. He's got Rome on the other side. It's got some weapons. Of course, they have Brees, who's a mega stud. So you've got Aaron Rodgers is really set up now to have success right off the bat. And the hard knocks promises from last season might actually be delivered on this season without Aaron Rodgers snapping his Achilles this year. Would be next year coming up would be great. All right, so I'll spoil it a little bit. I only have one quarterback on this list because I'm really, besides the top three, there's no one else I'm really like, I love this fit for them. I know Atlanta's been a big talking point, but hey, I think Atlanta's going to be a really, I think that Atlanta's going to really go after Justin Fields if it plays out where Caleb Williams is the guy. The Bears could hold on to him if they want, but why not get some draft capital for a guy that still has a lot of potential? And then it'd be a homecoming for Justin Fields. You know, he's from the town that's like 20 minutes from my house. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say that on the internet, but it's true. Georgia. Anyways, fit I like. This one might be a little controversial, but J.J. McCarthy to the Steelers. You know, I don't really fully understand the hate going towards J.J. McCarthy. Maybe it's just because he was once looked at as like maybe the second quarterback, and now he's like the fourth to get drafted. I don't know what that is all about, but I like Drake May. I like Jaden Daniels, but I still doesn't mean I don't like J.J. McCarthy. I do, because I think he's got good physicality. He's got good speed. He's got a strong arm. You know, he really can throw the ball with a lot of velocity. I think he's got good mechanics. He's shown the ability to throw from different arm slots, which is like something that's a lot of the really good quarterbacks. I mean, Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, of course, like that's a valuable skill. You know, I just think that his biggest problem, and it could be a huge problem in the NFL, is sensing pressure and dropping your eyes and all that, you know, forcing throws under pressure, things like that. That's kind of what sets the good quarterbacks from the great quarterbacks, is kind of that sixth sense of just on the football field. But doesn't mean he can't be good. It doesn't mean he can't be a high-level game manager, as the once great fallen from grace Cam Newton likes to say. But I think that'd be a good fit. I think Steelers fans would be like annoyed because they would probably say going to J.J. McCarthy from Kenny Pickett is like going from Kenny Pickett to J.J. McCarthy. I could see that being said. They're two different people. So I do think the Steelers would also be a place that McCarthy could go where he doesn't have to, from day one, take over the starting duty. And a lot of guys getting thrown right into the fire. It's too much. They don't have the level of experience and training, development, polish that they need to succeed right away. Destroys the confidence, and their teammates start to resent them, and it gets to their head, and now they are a broken quarterback, Zach Wilson. So J.J. McCarthy can sit for a year, you know, maybe even like middle of the year, week 9, week 10. He could come in if the Steelers aren't doing too hot. Kenny Pickett sucks. If whatever the other dude on that team is, Mason Rudolph sucks, whoever. Like, I like that fit. Number 5, I got Keon Coleman going to the Bills. The Bills seem like a team that's going to be needing to replenish their wide receiver room. Who knows what's going to happen with Stephon Diggs? Who knows what's going to happen with Gabe Davis? Gabe Davis seems like he's kind of been phased out of that offense. Like, he's not really a focal point. He's kind of like if it's there, great, but we don't expect it to be there kind of guy, which is why he's been so boom or bust in fantasy. But I think a guy like Keon Coleman, who's like a really big dude, his his body. I mean, he looks like Julio Jones or a body type. I wouldn't make that comparison because that's just like asking way too much. And by the way, my pro comp for JJ McCarthy, I keep forgetting to do these, was actually Baker Mayfield. So I do want to throw those in there. But what I say with Keon Coleman, he's big, strong player. He wins jump balls. He is good yards after the catch. He's just not that fast. And his footwork, route running ability, I think needs some work. But the speed you can't really fix, which is okay. There's plenty of receivers who aren't all burners, and they're still very, very good. Keenan Allen comes to mind. Still finds ways to get open. That's all right. But he can use some refinement himself, but I think he has a lot of upside, and that could be a really good pick for the Bills. And they have a good quarterback, great quarterback that can, elevate a guy like Keon Coleman. Number 6, I'm going with Brian Thomas Jr. at LSU, the other LSU receiver coming out high in this draft. Going to the Chiefs. Another guy with a very big frame, 6 foot. I want to say 6'4". I should have wrote that down. I forgot to write it down. But he's a taller receiver, and he's a bigger. He's not a tall shrimp. He's a stocky guy, not quite DK Metcalf, but big dude. He is an explosive athlete on top of that. I think he's got good agility on his routes. From what I've seen, he's had a few times where he loses coordination and can get a bit sloppy, I think, with his routes. Maybe that has to do with fatigue and conditioning. But I think that very similarly to Keon Coleman, you put a high upside receiver, pair him with Rashee Rice, they're going to need weapons. Kelce, who knows how much long Travis Kelce is going to be playing. We'll see what happens if they end up winning the Super Bowl, which I think they will. If he sticks around, we'll see. I'm guessing he will, but Travis Kelce is not a spring chicken anymore, even though he's still a very good player. So another weapon, a young, big target for Patrick Mahomes, who he can also elevate. I think that would be a very good fit, and that would be good for fantasy. Number 7, my first running back. Because running backs this year, kind of underwhelming. Last year, we had a couple guys who we felt very strongly, especially with their draft capital being so high. Obviously, I'm talking about Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, that we felt very confident. This year, I don't think that there's a running back that's going to go in the first round. Just nobody that's really worthy of it. But I think the only one that's even close is Trey Benson. From what I saw, great burst, can break away from guys, breakaway speed, very good balance, which is a very underrated thing that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough with football players, is having contact balance. I think I've said it multiple times on the channel, and I'll say it again. Alvin Kamara, some of the best contact balance I've ever seen. Super impressive. Reason why he's been great for so long. But I would say, I think he's got average agility. He's a little bit stiff. I think he tries to overpower when that is not going to translate as well in the NFL. You've been able to overpower guys in college, in the NFL. That's, unless it's like a few select small DBs that are trying to tackle you, it's not going to work all the time. So maybe he needs to get a little bit more wiggle. He also has kind of a rough injury history. One major injury, why he transferred to FSU in the first place. So, but I think he is the best prospect at running back so far. But there's still another one that I do like a good bit. But I don't even think I said his team yet. Trey Benson to, sadly, the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know the contract situation with DeAndre Swift. I'm guessing even if DeAndre Swift stays around, and he started off really nice with the Eagles, and then he was up and down. He was up and down. Their offense started to sputter at the end. They kind of had a huge breakdown. That's not DeAndre Swift's fault, but I think that getting a guy like Trey Benson in there makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. And I don't know, just seems like a really good fit to me. So number 8, another running back-to-back running backs. A guy I kind of like, and I'll admit that I'm biased, is Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is a freaking monster. I put power times 3. Guy is 6'2", 240. He's under 21 years old, which is age really does matter when you're looking at running backs in fantasy football and football in general, but fantasy football, you want that young breakout age. That's a big factor. And if they're going to be good at the next level, I also think he's pretty stiff. He's really not a fluid receiver. He can catch, but he doesn't seem to know what to do after the catch a lot. It's like he kind of gets like stuck, like, oh, what do I do? I'm used to seeing the players in front of me, and I have to turn around and, kind of reestablish my position. And, it's kind of awkward, put that way, after catch the ball. But I do like what I see from him. I do like that power back. I have his pro comp, of course, biased again. Who came to mind? Brandon Jacobs, because he's just huge power back. But that could have a big role, and that could work in fantasy because you got guys who just fall into the end zone, and that's worth a lot. So, yeah, I like Braylon Allen to go to the 49ers. You might say, oh, but why? I mean, they've got Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the NFL. But they also have behind him Elijah Mitchell, who is constantly injured, and who is Jordan Mason, who is like the epitome of a Jag. If they're a team that's already stacked and in the end of the second round, they can get a guy who can take a lot of pressure beating off of Christian McCaffrey, because as great as he is, McCaffrey is almost 30 years old. I don't think that's an automatic death sentence, but it's like, it's where that cliff starts to start, coming into view. And I don't think Braylon Allen is ever going to be a workhorse back, but I think a guy that could just be your power back for 4 or 5 seasons and just cement that role. I like that pick for the 49ers. So, moving on. Number 9. I'm ready, almost through the list. Number 9. I've got a guy that I think is not really being talked about very much, but I think is going to be one of those just rock solid players in the NFL, kind of like your epitome of a wide receiver 2 that's just very trustworthy, and that is Adonai Mitchell. And I have him going to the Panthers. So the Panthers don't have a pick until pick 30. I think it's 30. Yeah, 33. The first pick of the second round. So you look at that wide receiving core for the Panthers, and you've got Adam Thielen, very, very up there in age. You've got Mingo, Jonathan Mingo, who was just drafted last year. And yes, the Panthers offense in general was rough. Bryce Young looked rough. Everybody looked pretty rough. I mean, Adam Thielen had a pretty nice run in the beginning of the year where it was just like nothing but like short to intermediate targets going to him, and he was racking up catches. Cool. PPR players love me. He's the ad on the PPR players love me. Standard players hate me. But the point I'm making is their receivers are very questionable as it stands right now. Even though I don't think Adonai Mitchell is going to be like some bona fide wide receiver one, that's okay. Having a rock solid receiver that's just pretty much above average in everything, except he's not a good blocker, whatever. That is important for receivers, don't get me wrong, but it's not a deal breaker. You get a guy that Bryce Young can really rely on. I think that's going to be big for his development, and he could be a pretty decent little pickup late rounds for fantasy. And my number 10, a lot of wide receivers on this list because it seems like a very deep wide receiver class and a very shallow running back class. But my number 10 pick is another Georgia boy, Ladd McConkey, going to the Los Angeles Rams. So huge change of scenery for him, but an awesome fit. I think Sean McVay, I think he is going to get unfairly profiled as a slot-only guy. Why? Because he's under 6 feet and he's white. And we've seen that archetype play out in the NFL multiple times, and it's been successful with guys like Julian Edelman and Wes Welker, and what's the guy's name from the Raiders? You know what I'm talking about. Not this past year, but Hunter Renfrow. So, but I think he's a guy that actually can play vertical a bit. I think he's very fast and he's very quick. He's got a lot of agility. I think he's a smooth route runner. He's got good hands in traffic. Like, I guess that kind of does profile as a slot receiver a lot, but I think, let's just put it this way. His weakness is just his size, and he's just not going to play very physical. But I think this is a fair comp, and I think when you hear it, you're going to like it. Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett does not play physical at all. Like, you see him actively avoiding conflict, and just like a linebacker's about to hit him, even some safety's about to hit him, he just goes down. He's like, my best ability is availability, and he just goes down. Ladd McConkey can be that way too. Doesn't have to really fight through a bunch of tackles to be successful. I think he can get vertical. He's got speed. He's got quickness. He can get open. He's got good hands. Sean McVay, I think, can absolutely do great things with Ladd McConkey on his team right away. And they've been looking for that guy. Like, yeah, they've had a freaking massive hit with Puka Nacua this past year. Cooper Kupp's still there. His season wasn't great, but he's still going to be a very good receiver next year. And they've kind of been looking for that third wide receiver in their system. It seems like pretty much that's their offense, the way it runs. They want 3 wide receivers on the field at all times. And guys like, what's his name? Well, they traded one to the Falcons. I'm forgetting it. Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell. That's the name. Okay. Tutu Atwell, like, I think McConkey from day one would be an upgrade to Tutu Atwell, and that would be a great fit for them. So that's my list. At some point, I think I'm going to do a full first round mock, just so I can make a mockery of myself, because those are never accurate. We'll see. Maybe I'll get Paul on the channel and we'll do like a head-to-head GM kind of back and forth, play off each other kind of deal, which would be fun. But yeah, my 10 favorite fits for fantasy football for players in this upcoming draft. There you have it. So you have a good one. Enjoy life in the new world. Peace.